This is the Get Sellers Calling You marketing podcast for real estate agents, and I'm Beatty Carmichael. For simple-to-do, proven marketing strategies focused exclusively on finding sellers and getting more listings, visit our website at getsellerscallingyou.com. And now, let's begin our next session of Get Sellers Calling You.
I think that's our signal that we are recording, and that should mean that we have Beatty on the call.
I am
Are you there,
here.
Beatty? Okay, great.
I am.
Okay, well, I'll just officially welcome us. Hi, I'm Carolyn Springer, and welcome to this next session of Get Sellers Calling You with Beatty Carmichael. Beatty is the CEO of Master Grabber, the creator of Agent Dominator, and one of the top marketing experts in the real estate field. Today, we're actually going to be doing a continuation from our call from last week. It's exploring 5 ways to identify sellers. And last week, we went through home valuation and really went through a lot of great information. There's so much content here to explore together. So if you would like a recording of that podcast, let us know. It should be on our Get Sellers Calling You website as well for you to refer back to. Just a reminder, for those of you that are on our live call, we will have the lines muted, but again, open up for questions at the end of the call with Beatty. So welcome, Beatty, officially.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be back.
Well, thank you for just your time and for continuing with us. I thought we could continue. Like I said, we are continuing in the 5 ways to identify sellers. I thought we could maybe just start off with, going back a refresher of what we went over last time, possibly, just a few minutes, and then kind of start with point number 2.
Okay, sure. I think that's a great idea. So just a quick refresher, both for those who may have missed last week's call, or if you're actually listening to this sometime in the future as a podcast, and it's been a while since you listened to last week's call, this just kind of catches up. So there are a number of ways that you can find sellers before they go on the market. The obvious value of finding a seller before they go on the market is if you can get to them first, you pretty much solidify your foothold in getting that listing when it does come on, assuming and especially if they like you, okay? So the follow-through is critically important. But the first thing that we talked about from last week is the home valuation websites and how to market them and how to really kind of utilize them. And most importantly, there's a couple of things that you can do that will enhance the ability of only generating leads from people who are thinking about selling. So in probably a 60 or 90 second nutshell, you can find home valuation websites online. There's one version I forget that's really a great one because it doesn't give a specific price point for a person, making them then fight you when it comes to trying to get a listing price. But it shows a range of prices from actually 3 different sources that gives the homeowner a chance to see, okay, my home is going to be priced between $375 and $522. Another provider says it's going to be probably around $595 to $540. Okay, so it's going to give some different price ranges that allows your prospect to not have a preconceived idea that then fights you on it. So that the first thing is get a good one so that you're not fighting issues. Second thing that we talked about is when you do your marketing, if you add a little bit of content up front on your headline and in your body copy that says basically, if you were thinking about selling your home, then one of the first things you ought to do is find out what your home is worth so you get an idea of what you would have money for your next house. That concept of an idea. What this does is it begins to eliminate more of those people who just want to find out what their home is worth. If you just go out with an ad that says, find out what your home is worth, go to this website, then you have no idea if the person's thinking about selling or not, because almost everyone would like to know what their home is worth because it is their most valuable asset. So you got to do a few things to kind of narrow that field down. Those are the core of the things we talked about. Obviously, we went into a lot more deeper analysis on it, but that's kind of a quick review. Does that help, Caroline?
Yes, that does. Thank you, Beatty. I think that was a good refresher. And again, we do have a full 30-minute podcast kind of exploring those things. It was really a lot of great content. So thank you for sharing all of your expertise, Beatty. So kind of moving forward.
I got to tell you a story on that, okay?
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. But when you say all your expertise, so this is true about almost everything. So I kind of share this because it's funny, but also there's an inherent amount of truth in it. This old businessman had a business. He'd been running it for years. One of his key employees who'd been in with him for 10 or so years came to him one day and said, "Boss, I've got some good news and bad news." And he said, "All right, well, let's hear the good news first." So the good news, I'm going to be leaving, and I'm starting my own business, and finally move into business ownership. So great, congratulations. What's the bad news? Bad news is I'm going to be competing directly with you in the same line of work that you do. The old businessman leaned back in his chair and said, "Well, that's all right, but just remember one thing." He said, "What's that, boss?" He said, "I taught you everything you know, but I didn't teach you everything I know." So, so I will try to teach as much as I know, but there is inherently a lot of those intricacies within the details that never really come out in calls like this. So I'm not sure where that goes, but I did have to tell you one thing. We use this. So this is something, by the way. This is now how can you take that story and use it in real estate? So if you're going after FSBOs, okay, one of the things that we did early on, and there's just not enough FSBOs to really mature this concept out at the scale that we need to mature it if we're going to actually pursue it. But for those agents who do go after FSBOs, here's a really good approach that you can take. Be willing to help them with information that will help them sell their home, but overwhelm them with how much information they need to do well if they're going to get the most money. Because most people, when they're doing a FSBO, they believe that all I have to do is stick a sign in the yard, pay someone to put me online in the MLS, or not even go MLS and just go Zillow and these other websites, because people are still going to find me. Be willing to pay a little bit of a fee to a buyer's agent, and I'm going to do better than selling my home with a listing agent. So that's their perception. But the reality is, most of us know, is completely different, but the FSBO owner, doesn't know it. So what we have to do is educate them to the point that they realize that they're woefully unprepared to really understand all the dynamics. So talk to them about the contracts, talk to them about negotiation, talk to them about better preparation of the house and things to update and things to fix up and things to stage and all these other aspects, okay? And there's probably, if you were to make, build out a list, there's probably 20 or 30 different things that you as a realtor do on the seller side to ensure most successful sale, all the way down and including the marketing and the pre-marketing and everything else. So as you're sharing that, one of the things that we would teach our clients to use is that comment, this story about the old businessman. Because that FSBO person says, "Okay, I think I got it, but boy, there's a lot here." Yeah, but just remember, I've taught you everything you know, but I haven't taught you everything I know. And the key, where the value add of a realtor coming in to list your home brings to the table, is all these other things that you don't know, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to save 3%. The question is, do you believe my skill and expertise, and you start listing out all these areas that you work in, from preparation and promotion and professional photography and getting it written online, driving in the business, networking with the agents, knowing how to negotiate, knowing how to write, all these things. Do you feel that I could probably achieve a 3% greater difference than your ability who've never done this except once? Okay, I've done this, 500 times in my career. So at that point, you start to recognize, yes, I think I got it, but the reality is, all I know is what you taught me, but you know a whole lot more that you never taught me. Okay, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just that's how that topic came up when we were using it a while back. Anyway, I digress from the topic of this call. So let's get back on the topic.
No, I think that's great. I mean, those are great pointers. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to learn and to, share stories. And so I think it's great. I like, that even that story, a little bit of entertainment is good too. So that story about that businessman too. And then again, of course, applying it to our businesses. So I think those were all really great points and things that, I know we've spoken before. My husband and I are not selling our home, but I've thought about that, the more that I've, thought about one day selling our home. I'm like, I think occasionally you think, I could, sell my home. I know the best features and things like that. But then again, really conveying that argument about that they can really bring in more than that 3% that you would save. The more I think about it, the more I think, whenever we do list, we will probably find a realtor. So I think that's a great piece of advice to share. Yes, continuing with our 5 ways to identify sellers. I know for point 2, we had you kind of go through them last week. And so for point 2, you have a concept called I Have a Client. And this is one I'm really excited about. I have seen it in action a little bit, and I've seen how successful it is. So I'm really, really excited to hear you share about it, wherever you'd like to begin.
Sure. Well, let's talk about what the I Have a Client is. So if I mention the I have a client letter, most agents kind of get an idea. And the challenge that I find with most agents, okay, and this happens with everyone, I'm in the same boat within my own little realm, is we put everything in a box and we say, well, that won't work for me because. And what happens is you start to limit yourself by limiting your thinking of the possibility of how can you use it in a way that does work. So let me share what happened. Longtime friend of the family, a real estate agent named Rob, became one of my clients early on. And at this time, we were still kind of developing content to identify sellers before they came on the market. And he was sharing with me something that he did, and I immediately latched on it. I tried it, and it actually became our #1 producing content for identifying a seller before they come on the market. And it's what I call the I Have a Client approach. But let me share what happened with him. So most agents recognize the I Have a Client approach that says, hey, I've got a buyer. He wants to live someplace. And so I target those homeowners and say, I've got a buyer that wants to buy your home. Will you sell? Okay? And if they don't get a response, they don't do, the agent just kind of goes away. But what this guy did is this buyer had been looking in this one area of town, probably one neighborhood, and just couldn't find the house. It had been a year and a half, maybe 2 years, as best as I recall the story. So Rob wrote a letter, and he photocopied it. And he stuck it in the mailboxes on all the houses on this one particular street where his client really wanted to live. And the letter said something like, hey, I'm Rob so-and-so. I'm a real estate agent. I have a client who's been looking for a house on this street for a year and a half or 2 years. He can't find the one that he wants. Are you interested in selling your home? Because if you are, I think my client will buy it. Okay? And he also went through and I think maybe kind of selectively put it in the various houses that fit the criteria of his buyer. So, and he told me that he got a response or two, and if I recall it correctly, again, this goes back years, so I don't want to elaborate and fabricate, but I think what happened is he found a seller, but it wasn't a right fit for the buyer, but he got a listing out of it anyway. And I thought, that's brilliant, okay? Because now what we have is the most important thing when identifying a seller is a compelling offer. If I can get a compelling offer that will jar that person thinking about selling to shift, to take action, to respond, then I've got a way I can find sellers all day long. So we then took that approach and started thinking and saying, how can we modify this so that it fits anyone? And that's what I like to suggest here. You can take the I have a client approach and modify it so it fits pretty much anyone on this call. It's a very simple way of doing it. Now, you can overuse it, and if you overuse it, then the effectiveness will go away. But what limits most people is the belief that because I don't have a client right now looking to buy on this street or in this neighborhood, I can't use that approach because I want to be honest. I want to be, have integrity. And if I don't have a client that's looking, I can't use that approach. Well, change the terminology a little bit. Okay, so you may not have a client, but do you have buyers who all the time are looking in that area? Do you have a buyer database? People who've expressed interest in buying, maybe leads you generated through Zillow or other online sources that were looking at a home. And if you're like most good agents, hopefully you've been building up a database, you have some sort of a touch system, and you'll find that periodically over time, those people end up buying a home because sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it takes a year or year and a half before they find the home that they really want. So you can then leverage that approach and write a letter that says, I have approximately, and let's just now put some numbers to it. So let's say I'm going to go out in this neighborhood with a zip code, okay? General zip code. Maybe people who've inquired on houses that were in this certain area, and you've accumulated that database. So why not then put together a letter that says, I work with a lot of buyers, and I have 52 buyers right now looking for a home in your specific area, and they have not been able to find the right one. If you're thinking about selling your home, I might be able to get it sold immediately because of these buyers that I work with. If you're interested in selling, if you think you may want to sell, give me a call and let's talk and see if it fits what these buyers are looking for. Okay, so that's one way that you can do it. So now we're able to take that compelling offer, we're able to rewrite the approach so that now we're completely honest, and we don't have, and we're not saying necessarily I've got a buyer that wants to buy your house, but I've got a buyer that wants to be in this area, and all we're doing is shaking the bushes to try to get someone to raise their hand, so to speak, and reach out and say, yeah, we're possibly thinking about buying. Tell me what these guys are looking for, okay? So that's the initial concept. Are you following so far?
Yes, I think that's brilliant. I mean, and I don't think that would be, at all making yourself portraying, something that might not be true. I think that kind of covers your bases. And then, like you said, we'll kind of create that self-selection naturally to get the right interested people to kind of grab the bait.
Yes. Okay, but now there is one inherent problem with this. Can you figure it out before I tell you?
Oh, as you were saying that, I was like, I don't know. I'm afraid I'm going to say the wrong thing. Is it going to bring too wide of a net in?
Nope.
Okay. I didn't think so, but...
It's the opposite. It's just the opposite.
Okay. Oh, just the opposite. It's going to bring too few people that, they aren't quite ready. They're just thinking about it. That's right, too few people.
So why do you think it's going to bring too few people? Let me restate it. It's going to bring much fewer people than are really thinking about selling. And why do you think that is?
Probably just because it's such a definitive, action statement that, I have people that are ready to buy right now. It's probably going to only bring people that have either maybe already tried to sell their home or have already listed with somebody, which is probably a smaller scope of people. I would think just because of I just know if I was thinking about selling and, I wasn't maybe ready to sell in, today. I just think that would be kind of like something I'd tuck away, but maybe wouldn't necessarily call the person right away.
Potentially, there's that's a good idea, but it actually is something deeper than that. It has to do with how prospects respond and how they don't respond. Let me know when you're ready to give up, and I'll give you the answer.
I'm ready to give up. I'm ready to hear.
Okay, so let's talk at a high level of lead generation. The most important part. Okay, so let me ask it this way. Let me see if we can get there through a series of questions. If I were to put that letter out among a number of homes throughout a neighborhood, in your estimation, would you agree that it's likely I'm going to actually stick that letter in the mailbox of at least a decent number of people who actually are thinking about selling their home in the near future? Does that make sense? If I get it out to enough people?
Are you saying that I would be thinking, yes, that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, just the sheer numbers. If I go out and stick that letter in 100 mailboxes, I am bound to stick it in the mailboxes of at least several people that truly are thinking about selling. If I were to stick it out into 500 mailboxes, I'm going to have even more people that actually get it in the mailbox of those who are thinking about selling. So I've got a group of people who are thinking about selling, but here's the problem. If you're thinking about selling, but you're not really sure if you're going to sell, or you're thinking about selling, but you know it's going to be next year, how comfortable are you to call up a real estate agent and let them know that information before you're really committed to move forward?
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking earlier when I was I think that would be, you probably wouldn't be very comfortable just because you would think, oh, I'm calling a salesperson, they've got people ready, and, I'm just thinking, we're kind of planning out, because selling, like you said, your most valuable asset is a really big decision and something, people probably take some time to think about. So they wouldn't necessarily, call right away as
That's right.
at the beginning of their thought process.
So if you're somewhere in that thinking process but not yet at the commitment ready to sell process, you're going to hesitate calling a salesperson and letting them know, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
All right. Now let's look on the far other end of that spectrum. Let's assume that you've been thinking about selling and that you're actually about to you want to put your home on the market in about 2 weeks. Now, if that's the case, are you going to be more likely to pick up the phone and call that agent?
Absolutely, just especially thinking that they already had people, ready to go.
Okay. So here's what we've got, okay? So right now we've got a compelling offer that is inducive to only getting the I'm ready to sell right now type of prospect, but not inducive on getting the I'm thinking about selling but I'm not ready to commit prospect. Follow the logic so far?
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay. All right. Which group do you think has more sellers in it? The one that's ready to sell right now, or that group of people who are thinking about selling but not ready to commit? Which one do you think has more people in it?
Probably the one that's thinking about selling.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
just because
the one that's thinking about selling, that's right. So the one who's thinking about selling is more likely to have a lot more people in. That if you were to nurture that group, you will end up making more sales. Here's where the problem comes. If you're about to put your home on the market, maybe within two weeks, is it likely and or probable that you've already been thinking about a specific agent, maybe even called the specific agent, maybe even interviewed a specific agent, and might even have already signed a listing agreement with that specific agent? Is it likely and probable that if you're a week or two out, that transaction has already taken place?
Yes, absolutely. I would think so for most people. Like I said, I think unless they, were with an agent where it didn't work or, had tried to list several times. I would think, I see what you're saying. You're kind of weeding the people out that would respond.
Right. So here's where we find ourselves. If you take that approach as we just did it, call me. You're likely to get only those people that are right around the corner for putting their home on the market, and a good number of them are likely already thinking about, if not already contracted with, another agent. So you have less opportunity to pick up a deal the closer to the time that they're about to put their home on the market. So the inherent problem with this approach is you eliminate too many people for one reason. You're requiring them to actually contact you directly. One of the things that I've learned in direct response marketing, which is what this is, one of the things I've learned is if you want to open up the floodgate of people responding, you've got to make it fearless for them to respond. You've got to make it where they don't feel like they have to give up any of their contact information to some unknown person who might then try to follow up and try to push them into making a selling decision before they're ready. Okay, make sense so far?
Yes, absolutely.
So then the question is, how do you take... Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I know where you're going, and I'm excited, because how do you, get, without them, calling you, how do you get their information?
That's it. So now we have to apply what we call stealth identification. We have to create some method that allows us, without them knowing that we know, but allows us to identify who they are, which means we have to use a different type of call to action. So at a real high nutshell, in a marketing piece you have the offer, which in this case, I have buyers who may buy your home immediately. You have the body copy, which explains and validates the offer so it becomes credible. And then you have the call to action, which is how they find out more information. So the call to action is really the key in this approach to maximizing the number of prospects that you get. If you use the call to action that says email me or text me or call my office or anything like that where they are identifying who they are, you're going to eliminate all of those people that are afraid to give their name to a salesperson because they're not ready yet. You're going to eliminate all those people who they're just thinking about this, but they don't want to bother you and they don't want someone calling them right now, that type of stuff. So the question then is to make this work really well, you've got to come up with a different call to action. And so there's a couple ways that you can identify people through a direct response method. The easiest one that's out there is the call capture number. So this is a toll-free number. It's a recorded message. And there are tons of providers all through the real estate world. You can just type in, call capture real estate, okay, something like that, and you'll find tons of vendors on it. But what will happen is you would then put a message on that voicemail recording that says, hi, if you're responding to my marketing piece and thinking that you might be interested in selling in such and such area, so maybe use a different call capture number for each locality. In the Garden Heights area, I've got 52 buyers in my database right now that are looking in that area. And I would love to visit with you, especially if you're thinking about putting it on the market soon or later. So you just give whatever message, because the message doesn't matter at this point. At this point, I would even say, call me or email me, or send me an email with your home address or with your email address, and I'll respond back with what specific these homeowners are generally looking for to see if your home is a match. Anything you want to do at that point, because what you've done now is by virtue of the fact that they call that toll-free number to hear the message, they've just identified themselves because now you have their caller ID. You don't know who they are, you just have a caller ID of the person, and now you know that that person is likely thinking about selling. So that's the simple thing. is it okay if we go just maybe a couple minutes, because I know we're about out of time for this call, but I wanted to talk on one more thing. I probably should not have taken time about the FSBO stuff at the beginning.
That's okay. If we I think I know where you're going. I think it would be great just to explore a few more minutes. Absolutely.
Okay, great. So another thing that you can do, so you have the call capture number, okay? You do have a website concept idea where you can send someone to a website. And if you send someone to a website, usually you say, fill out this form for more information. That kind of works, but it kind of doesn't, because now you're back in that same problem. One of the things that we did, and I don't know, I think there may be other sources online that will help you do this. I know that one of the things that we created to make this happen is we actually created a unique URL for each marketing piece we send out. So if we were to send it out to, 100 addresses, each address has a different URL, and then we track the URL that is being hit at that moment. And based on which URL is being hit, we match it back to the address we sent it to. So now we know exactly who it is. But the key in this whole approach is you've got the amazing offer, but then you've got to have some way to get them to respond without them knowing it. Here's the magnitude of it. If you think about, especially for those people who are listening in today and they do online marketing, they have a website, they have a lead capture page, you'll know these numbers. It's typically out of every 100 viewers that come to your website, maybe 5 or 8 of them will actually fill out the form. In other words, you'll get somewhere between 15 and 20 times the response rate if they don't have to fill out the form. And that's what we find. If you can use some sort of a process that captures their information without them knowing it, you open up the floodgates. The floodgates that you're opening are those who are not yet ready, but they're thinking about it. So if you can engage with those who are not yet ready, but are thinking about it, and you have a great follow-up program, and you stay in touch with them, then our experience, when you do the follow-through properly, you can get 90 to 100% of all those listings when they come on the market to be your market. In fact, that might be something we want to talk about later on with this call series, is how do you follow up on these things. So, but anyway, that's I know we're pretty much kind of out of time. Let me turn it back over to you, just out of sensitivity on that.
Yeah, that's great. No, I mean, I was just thinking that too, that could be something to explore, like, how do you respond? Because I think some people might, not want to feel too big brothery, and I think that there is, an appropriate way, to approach that. And I know that'd be something that we would love to maybe hear from you about. Well, thank you, Beatty. I know we are out of time, so, it is about time to wrap up. But thank you for your time and just your expertise. I think it really was a great call. But before we close out, I know, Beatty, that you offer, some services like even you were just referring to with, with the I Have a Client card, and even, I don't know if you want to explore and share a little bit about like those unique URLs and geographic farming, or just any kind of services. I wanted to kind of give you an open window to share on that.
Yeah, appreciate that. We do. It's called Agent Dominator. You can find it at agentdominator.net. Okay, and so these things that I'm teaching is all the stuff that we use. Okay, that we perfected. That we do a really great job. Sort of like what I said at the beginning of the call. I taught you everything you know, but I haven't taught you everything that I know. Okay, and it's the difference between what I taught you and what I know that really makes the biggest difference. And it's a lot of times those little nuances. So, so we've got a program that we've done. It's used for your personal market. It's used for your the cold market, like geo-farming or anything like that. And it's a touch system, and it has everything from finding sellers to the entire follow-through process. Imagine this. Imagine if you could take even your personal list, where most people know who are going on the market sometimes without them, and they choose another agent. If you knew who was thinking about selling before they came on the market, and it's your personal list, yeah, you could get those deals all day long and keep them from going to someone else. So that's kind of what Agent Dominator does, along with a lot of other things. So appreciate you letting me do that.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, thank you again so much, Beatty, for your time and for sharing that. So what we're going to do is wrap up the call. And for those of you that are on the live call, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Beatty, just hold on. And as soon as we've wrapped up, we'll go over into a short questions and answer time. We are finishing up our GetSellersCallingYou.com website where all these recordings will be. And that also you'll be able to find our schedule of when all of our calls will be as well. There's going to be some training and resources on there. And then if you would like a copy of this call or would like to forward it in just a moment when we open up the lines, you can let us know there as well. So that's going to be all for today. Thank you so much for joining in. And again, thank you for your time, Beatty.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, please tell others about it. Also, be sure to get our step-by-step training on how to double sales and referrals from past clients and sphere of influence. It's absolutely the easiest way to grow your business fast, and it's completely free. You'll find it on our website at GetSellersCallingYou.com. Thanks for listening.